trying to tell me I have to let go of everything I've ever known growing up in the hood just to do something different? Nah, you'll never catch me doing that because I'm a real... I'll call you back. Now, this is all fun and games right now because I'm just making content, but believe it or not, I do get concerns about this and questions in some of the comments and on my other social media pages about this kind of thing because people that know me growing up see me differently now. Not necessarily a bad thing. I'll explain. I always got it dark up in here. What y'all know about turntables, G? Okay, so like I said, this topic is not going to be for everybody, but as I mentioned also, it has come up a few times before, whether in the comments or somewhere else on my social media. People ask me questions concerning this, and I just wanted to open up and talk about it because that's what I do on this channel. I talk about shit. So here's your warning in advance. If it makes you uncomfortable talking about this kind of thing, you might want to keep it moving. But in my opinion, you just might learn something no matter who you are. So I know most of us are not even strangers to this term. If you live on this earth in any modern society, you probably heard it in passing or directly at you in some kind of way. Somewhere you've heard it. I know you're not a stranger. I know it's not new to you, but I kind of want to open up just a little bit where I stand with it. A moment ago, I mentioned how people that I grew up with back in St. Louis see me on these videos and they kind of come to the conclusion that I've grown and I'm a little bit different and, you know, I speak differently, I say different things and, you know, so on and so forth. My only reply to that is like, yes, I've kind of become the person that I need to be in order to progress in the world that I live in. Not that I'm being someone else, just this is the graduated form, the evolution of me, Christopher. And generally it's accepted by most, but there are some that just can't really understand where I'm coming from when I say that. And with me trying to avoid being as judgmental as possible, because that's not my intention here, they most likely don't because they are still in that environment. They are still living the life that I used to live, whereas I've moved on and changed and am doing different things. So where they stand, they can't see themselves being what I am right now. And I kind of understand it, but let me give you a little bit of context of why I say that about them. During the height of me always going back home, visiting St. Louis, Missouri, like let's say when I was in the military, most of my my leave, my holidays, vacations, however you refer to it, was me going back home quite often. I would visit the Lou, St. Louis, quite often, and I would still be in contact with the people that I grew up with and hung out with as an adolescent into my maturity up into my early 20s, right? So when I go back home, I would see them kind of, and I don't want to say this as if it's like levels or anything, like they're down here and I'm up. I don't want to say it like that. That's not what it is. But more or less, they're still like in the same environment. So in my opinion, there's no reason to really be or do anything different if your environment never changes. So that's why I said what I said. They're kind of still in that environment. So if they have no reason to see, be, or do anything different, it's hard for them to understand through no fault of their own. It's hard for them to understand why I am, in fact, different. Does that make sense? I hope it does. And so not to make this video super long, one of the things that differentiates me from them nowadays is vocabulary / terminology, I'll just say. And to be even more specific, this particular phrase or terminology or saying or whatever right here. I hinted to it earlier in the video, and it's people referring to themselves as real niggas. And so that the algorithm doesn't lose its mind and go crazy, I had to bleep it, but I don't want to bleep it throughout the whole video. So from here on out, I'll just refer to it as real ends. Y'all know what I mean. So first off, let me just say that I personally think that this term, not the word, this term has been broken. I don't think it works or is used in the way that it was intended to be used. And I think it's been kind of redefined to mean something else. So let me just break down each word first. We'll talk about the first word and then we'll get to the next one. So the word real, in my opinion, when someone is referring to something as real, to me, they're saying that the opposite of said thing or anything that's not that thing is either fake or imaginary or untrue or something like that. That's what I see the word real meaning. So when I see somebody refer to themselves as being real, like I'm real, or someone else being not real, to me, they're saying that I'm true, I'm authentic, you're not true, you're not authentic. Because they're clearly not trying to say you're imaginary. So that's what registers with me when I hear real anything. It's basically saying I'm better than you are. So the N-word, though, we all know what's happening with the N-word nowadays. We know that the people have owned it and redefined it to not be as painful or cause as much mental and psychological damage as it used to cause when it was used and pronounced once upon a time. So we do know that. And we also know that no matter how it's used, it makes many people uncomfortable and it disturbs the air in the room sometimes, either way that it's used. And I do want to say, I always say that the onus is on the people who own whatever term that they're choosing to change into something else. It's on them. You do the same with like progressive lifestyle communities. If they want to take those terms and stuff that people used to call them and make it something that they can handle and make it light, that's on them. It's not for anybody else to say whether they can or can't. Same for in the woman community. If they don't feel like amongst the girlfriends, they want to call themselves certain things.
Oh, B, I'm about to kill them tonight. I'm going to find me a man.
I mean, that's going to be on them. That one might be questionable, but that's on them. In Hispanic communities, in Middle Eastern communities, in Asian communities, if they want to take derogatory things, switch it, break it down, and make it not so hard to swallow, that's on them. Leave them be. Same goes for the Black community and anybody outside of any individual community. If you don't agree with it, you don't have to. But in my opinion, I feel like you do have a duty to stay out of it. And that's all I'm gonna say about that, because I know people start getting up in arms about, freedom of speech. I want to be able to say whatever I want to say. But speaking from the Black community specifically right now, here's what I want to say. If you're not in it, think about this. At what point in your life will it ever benefit you to be able to use the word? When will it ever be beneficial to you to be able to use the word? Think about that. And see, that's one of the things I feel like needs to be gotten over in the W community. And that's always wanting everything and then wanting to take it when it's not handed over to you. We need to let that history be history and move on to something new. Y'all think about that, man, for real. All right, we're getting off track. So reeling it back into being a real in. Something tells me that when people say this, they're really looking for a reason to boost themselves up. I've talked this over with a cousin of mine who's quite the activist, if I may say, and we can't come to a concrete answer. Not really. Not one that suits this to make it make sense 100% without question, because this is what I get from it. If I was talking to somebody, let's just say back home, right? And they were like, well, how come you don't do this thing anymore? And I tell them, well, that's just not who I am anymore. And they reply to me like, well, I'll never change from this because I'm a real in. And that's where the confusion comes in for me. I'm just like, why do those things make you any better than me? And like I said, that's what he's really saying. He's kind of hinting, I'm better than you because I'm real. But you can't really define what makes you realer than me. You just need something to make yourself feel better about not being what you see me as. And that's not say that I'm better than you, but something in you might envy that I was able to change. So instead of just congratulating me for being a different person, you need something to help you still be as good as you think you are. So that's what you got, being real. In your mind, I can't say that, right? So that's you having something over me. So that's kind of the friendly way of one-upping me without saying, I think I'm better than you, which gets ridiculous, right? It gets completely ridiculous when you start breaking it down like this. That's the reason I'm even saying anything about this. I know this is going to be controversial. So in the way that I do my thinking and the way my thoughts are, this is kind of a self-boosting gone wrong. And maybe part of them thinks that I'm going to try one day to be as real as they are and change who I am so that they can then be the threshold. They see me as the threshold, and maybe they don't have the confidence in themselves to maybe reach to the heights or the levels that they feel like I'm at. So they have to give themselves something. That's kind of how I see it. That may sound twisted and people may disagree, but this is kind of how I see it. So do I use the N-word? Does Christopher use this word? Is it in Christopher's vocabulary? Sometimes people ask that question because they just want to know how to judge me. And instead of looking at my personality and who I am, they use that. So no, it's not in my regular everyday vocabulary. But hell, when I'm back in the loo, when I'm amongst family, close friends, it may slip out a time or two. Like I said, it's not in my everyday vocabulary, which is why you won't hear it on a video or any of my content, main channel or here. Y'all know what Germany is. You won't hear it on no trains. You just won't catch me using it in regular conversation. You wouldn't even know that it's ever been used just by talking to me. So save your judgment, because I don't want to hear it. That's where I stand on the damn word. And as far as being real, I'm going to shoot to be the realest me, whatever you define that as I can be. So it doesn't matter that in conversation, someone that looks like me was to tell me that, oh man, you're not a real N. And I'd be like, oh, well, I guess I missed that one, because I'm so much happier anyway, not shooting for any of these titles. The person in the mirror is the only person that I seek to improve over. And I hope that one day this can become more of the norm. That's all I got to say about this.